Starting up. Hi, good afternoon. If you're just tuning in, this is Protect Your Family from Fraud, a special presentation of the Manitoba Financial Services Agency and MoneySmart Manitoba in partnership with the Winnipeg Police Service. This presentation is part of Fraud Prevention Month in Canada. We're just going to wait another 30 seconds or so just to let a few more people log on, and we'll begin promptly. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Again, if you have some questions, you're welcome to type them in the chat below, and we'll share your questions with Detective Streilein and Jason Roy toward the end of the broadcast. This broadcast will be approximately 45 minutes to 1 hour, depending on the number of questions we receive. Again, thanks for joining us. And I think we'll get started. So once again, good afternoon. My name is Jason Booth. I'm moderating today's discussion. Thank you very much for joining us on this beautiful sunny afternoon in Winnipeg. This is Protect Your Family from Fraud, a special Facebook Live presentation of the Manitoba Financial Services Agency and MoneySmart Manitoba in partnership with the Winnipeg Police Service. This presentation is part of Fraud Prevention Month in Canada. Joining us today on the left is Jason Roy, Senior Investigator with the MFSA, and on the right is Detective Mike Streilein with the Winnipeg Police Services Financial Crimes Unit. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Leading off today's discussion will be Detective Streilein, who will be discussing mass market scams in Manitoba. Thank you, Mike. If you'd like to get us started today.
Sure. I'm Detective Mike Streilein. As Jason said, I'm a member of the Winnipeg Police Services Financial Crime Unit. I've been a member for the WPS for about 11 years now, and have spent the past 4 years investigating fraud. I'm also the coordinator for the WPS's Fraud Prevention Month program, and I'm here to talk about mass market scams in Manitoba and how we can prevent falling victims to those scams. So what exactly is a mass market scam? It's a term used for scams committed through mass communication, including over the phone, mail, email, and the internet in general. Mass market scams include the romance scam, the job scam, the CRA scam, which everyone's pretty aware of by now, the bank investigator scam, extortion scams, and a wide variety of others. Essentially, it's a scam that targets the masses. A couple of things I'm going to talk about today are some statistics from 2020 to see where the scams are going. Extortion scams, which is our top scam in Manitoba. Some other popular scams, COVID-19 scams, and some new trends in scams, and some general fraud prevention information. So in 2020, Manitobans lost approximately $4.3 million to mass market scams, and that number is just what is reported. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre estimates that less than 5% of the total number of fraud victims file a report with a law enforcement agency. So again, 4.3 million, that's just 5%. Imagine what the other 95% would be. That number would be much, much higher. So if you are a victim of a scam or a fraud, please report it. That's the best advice we can give you, number one. Of the $4.3 million lost to mass market scams, 1.9 million was lost to extortion scams. Extortion scams were the most reported type of scam in Manitoba and in Canada. What are extortion scams? Well, they are when fraudsters use coercion from a threat or a scare tactic to obtain money, property, or services from a victim. The fraudsters will reach out to victims by telephone, email, or text message and tell them that their personal information has been obtained, that their computer has been hacked, or that they owe money to an agency. The most popular extortion scams include the CRA scam, the Canada Revenue Agency scam. Fraudsters will call you up, usually by telephone. It'll claim your SIN number has been compromised. That's again your social insurance number, that you owe taxes, or that you committed a financial crime even. They'll then tell you that you need to either pay to have your name cleared, or you need to pay to have the CRA investigate it, or a number of different options. Essentially, they'll coerce you with a scare tactic to obtain your money. Another extortion scam is the explicit video scam. This is when a fraudster will claim that your computer's been hacked and that you've been recorded performing an explicit act. Usually that's not the case, but with everyone having webcams on laptops, I mean, it's pretty common. Another one is the ransomware scam, and that's when fraudsters claim your computer has been infected with a virus and all of your data will be erased. In each scam, the fraudster will demand that you pay them using money, prepaid cards, or even Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency. How to protect yourself? Be wary of phone calls, emails, and text messages. Although they may appear to be legitimate and from legitimate companies or agencies, fraudsters do use technology in ways to falsely present themselves as legitimate. Usually it's called call spoofing technology. So over a computer, they can basically pretend and make it appear that they're appearing from anyone and anywhere, including even the Winnipeg Police. We've seen some reports recently where they're coming from the non-emergency line 204-986-6222. Also, keep your computer safe and virus-free, and do not open suspicious emails. And if you do happen to open a suspicious email, check the information in the header of the email. That's where it says to and from. Verify that it's a legit email address if you can. And do not click on any links in that email. Just try to delete it if you do open it by accident. Never send money, provide prepaid gift card information, or send money through Bitcoin to persons you do not know. Businesses and government agencies do not ask for payment in prepaid gift cards or Bitcoin. Especially the CRA and any police force. We do not ask you to pay in any of those ways. In fact, the police don't ask you to pay to investigate any crime, including the RCMP and the Winnipeg Police. If something feels suspicious, or if you're unsure of something, ask a friend. Don't be afraid to reach out. Get the communication going between yourself, friends, loved ones. Usually someone will have heard of a scam potentially, and they'll give you advice as well. Another popular scam that we see is the romance scam. In 2020, Manitobans lost over $800,000 to romance scams. That money lost comes from a total of 31 victims who reported being fallen victim to that scam. So if you do the math, on average, a victim lost roughly $25,000. So they're very profitable if you fall victim to one, and they usually take place over a number of weeks or even months. In the last few years, I personally have dealt with victims who had lost as much as $100,000. So they're very profitable for fraudsters. What is a romance scam? It's when a fraudster seeks out an individual through social networking or dating sites and then begins an online relationship with them. The fraudster will spend weeks to months building the victim's trust, and once embedded into the victim's life, they will then manipulate them into sending money or providing access to their bank account. Fraudsters will usually send pictures of people who they find on the internet and pretend to be that person, including making up a fake name. In a lot of the cases, the fraudster will claim to be living overseas and will provide reasons as to why they can't meet up with you and be with you. Stories of family illness is common, including as well as business ventures gone wrong or problems with government processes, are just a few of the reasons why they usually need the victim to send the money. So they can help with an issue that's arisen, or send money so that they can be with the person, but then they'll say there's some travel issues and every excuse you could think of. Fraudsters will even send the victims fraudulent checks to deposit into their bank accounts, and will have them withdraw the funds and send those funds elsewhere as part of the scam. And then later, the check that they had sent you turns out to be fraud, and you're on the hook for that money that you already had sent out. So how to protect yourself from romance scams? Be suspicious if someone you meet online begins asking you to send money to them, especially if you've never met them in person. Fraudsters try to develop quick relationships with their victims, so be on your guard if they are professing their love to you very early on. Search the fraudster story online. You may find that it has been used before in another romance scam. Do not share your personal information or your financial information with them. And never under any circumstance should you send money for any reason, especially so if the fraudster claims it to be for some sort of an emergency. The emergency is always a red flag. Again, you should be meeting these people in person that you meet online before you start exchanging money or investing together or whatever have you. Another common scam is the buy and sell scam, so classified scams, and most of them take place online on Kijiji. In 2020, Manitobans lost approximately $230,000 to buy and sell scams, and it was the fourth most reported scam. Again, these scams take place over the sale of an item through an online classified like Kijiji or even Facebook Marketplace. And they usually happen in two ways. A fraudster will create an ad online for a product they don't actually have and then accept payment for those items from a victim and then never send them the item. And the other way is a fraudster will respond to an ad in which a victim is posted. Say you or I are selling a movie collection. The fraudster will then say, "Oh, I'll buy it off you. Let me send you a check." And then once they send you the check, they'll start telling you that, you know what, the check is actually for more money than what you're offering, but I need help shipping the item. Can you please pay the shipping duties on this? And then they'll direct you to send the money to their shipper, or as they like to call them, and usually that person is part of the scam. And yeah, so it's also called an overpayment scam. So they're essentially sending you that check more than what the item is for, and they're wanting you to deposit that check, withdraw all the funds, and then send them those funds. And then later on, that check will then bounce in your account, and you'll be on the hook for all the money that you withdrawn and sent the fraudster. We've been seeing a lot of reports coming in lately for victims who are falling victim, specifically for classified posts about rental properties. So just be wary of that. How to protect yourself from those types of scams? Try to exchange money in person with a buyer or seller, and make sure you do so at a safe place, even in the parking lot of a WPS station. We have designated zones to do so. Be wary of someone trying to send you more money than what you are asking, especially if they send you a check for a lot more than what you're asking. If the check does not clear before you forward the money, it may return as fraudulent, and any money that you sent off, you'll be at a loss for. Be cautious about e-transfers. Although these transactions can be traced, you're very unlikely to ever recover your money if you do send it off before receiving the item. And then never use a money transfer service like Western Union to send money to someone that you have not met in person. Once that money is sent, it is essentially gone. There's no way to trace it. It's extremely tough. COVID-19 scams. Obviously, this year has been a tough one with the pandemic, and fraudsters have been taking advantage of our misfortunes and this pandemic. And fraudsters have seen it as an opportunity to prey on innocent victims with fear-mongering. Some of the most popular COVID-19 scams that we've seen are fraudsters posing as private companies offering COVID-19 tests for sale, and that was in the beginning stages of the pandemic. There's also been fraudsters posing as financial advisors who would phone potential victims and pressure them into investing in hot new stocks related to the disease, whether it's cures for it. And also the fraudsters would offer financial aid and or loans to help people get through the lockdowns and being laid off. Fraudsters will also pose as Government of Canada employees, calling individuals by phone and attempting to get their personal information, including their Manitoba health card, SIN number. And then fraudsters posing as pharmaceutical companies offering vaccines for large sums of money. And that was, again, early on when vaccines weren't even really available yet. And now that they're slowly coming out, we're seeing a little bit less of them. How to protect yourself? Again, be wary of phone calls from phone numbers you do not recognize. And even if they appear to be legitimate on your call display, you should really question them and then not give out any personal information to them. Again, COVID-19 vaccines are only available through our health system. You won't be able to get one from a private company. Be wary of unsolicited calls, emails, text messages, which request urgent action or payment. If you didn't initiate contact, you don't know who you're communicating with. Refer to Government of Canada and Province of Manitoba websites for information on testing and vaccinations. Some new trends and scams we've been seeing it's not fairly new, but the past couple of years, it's mostly with the cryptocurrencies. So Bitcoin has been used quite a bit, as well as prepaid gift cards, and talk more about that. Bitcoin is the most popular cryptocurrency, and it's becoming widely used by fraudsters because of its anonymity and how difficult it is to track. Essentially, once a fraudster receives funds in their Bitcoin wallet, that money is gone and cannot be retrieved. Bitcoin is one of the most preferred payment methods used in extortion scams, especially the CRA scam. To prevent falling victims to scams involving Bitcoin, never send money through a Bitcoin ATM to someone that you do not know or have never met in person. Again, once you deposit money in a Bitcoin ATM, it goes to a fraudster's wallet, and that money is gone. So you make sure you know who you're sending your money to. Never pay for outstanding bills by sending money through Bitcoin. Government agencies, including the CRA, do not accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. I can't stress that enough. We try to get the message out, but victims still fall for this scam. Again, police agencies, Manitoba Hydro, the CRA do not accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. And before considering paying anyone or any company in Bitcoin, it is best to familiarize yourself with what Bitcoin is and how it works. Research it and ask a family member or friend. Prepaid gift cards like Steam gift cards, Apple iTunes gift cards, Google Play cards, they're used by fraudsters because they're easy to use. They can be redeemed with just the code on the back of the card, and they can be resold for actual money, even if the fraudster just obtains the code on the back of the card. To prevent falling victim to scam involving a prepaid gift card, make sure you only purchase gift cards for yourself or someone you know. Never give someone you don't know the redemption code on the back. Once you do, they can instantly drain the amount on the gift card. Again, they don't have to have the card present. If they have the code on the back, they can enter it online and make a purchase, and your money's gone. Government agencies and businesses do not accept prepaid gift cards as payment. Some general tips just on becoming the next victim of a scam. Be careful conducting online activities, including visiting unsecure websites and opening suspicious emails. Do not respond to calls, text messages, and emails from unrecognized phone numbers and persons. Monitor your credit card and banking transactions, including checking your credit score on Equifax and TransUnion. I think it's free once a year. We recommend people to do so because you can see if credit cards have been opened or loans have been applied in your name. Again, do not send money, prepaid gift card information, or Bitcoin to anyone that you've never met in person. And then for further details on popular scams and prevention tips, you can visit the Winnipeg Police website at winnipeg.ca and then find Winnipeg Police and then go under fraud prevention, as well as the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. And I'll say that out. It's ANTIFRAUD-CENTRE-ANTIFRAUDE.ca. Or you could just Google Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. A little bit easier. And again, if you're a victim of a fraud or scam, please report it. Like I said at the beginning, only 5% of victims are reporting falling victim to a scam. We need that number up so there can be more resources applied to investigating these crimes. The top 5 scams that in Canada that people are falling victim to, again, it's the romance scam. And this is in terms of dollars. 18.5 million in Canadians lost to romance scams. It's very profitable. Investment scams, $60.6 million lost to Canadians in 2020. The next one was the spear phishing, which is $14.4 million. And that's a scam where the fraudster is targeting a specific individual, pretending to be a legitimate person and convincing a business member to send money, like a CEO scam. So someone's pretending to be a CEO of a company, emailing someone else in that company and asking them to send money. Extortion scams were accounted for $12.4 million in losses to Canadians, and then sale of merchandise was $8 million to Canadians. So those are the big scams to watch out for, and for further information on them, please visit the Winnipeg Police website and the Canadian Anti-Fraud website. That's all I have for you right now, but I'll be around to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Detective Streilein.
You're welcome.
If you're just joining us, this is Protect Your Family from Fraud, a special presentation of MoneySmart Manitoba. That was Detective Mike Streilein with the Winnipeg Police Service Financial Crimes Unit. We're starting to get some questions coming in. Next, we're going to go to Jason Roy, Senior Investigator with the Manitoba Financial Services Agency. After Jason's presentation, both Mike and Jason will be online for a short while to answer your questions as we come in. So we're going to get to those important questions, and we look forward to answering them. Jason, thanks for being with us here. Mr. Roy is a 21-year veteran with the Manitoba Financial Services Agency, and previously worked as an investigator for ICE Futures Canada. And thanks again for being with us here today.
Thanks for having me.
So for this segment, we're going to take a little bit of a departure. So this will be a little bit more Q&A focused if you're watching from home. So Mr. Roy, can you start off by explaining a bit about investigations and enforcement at the MFSA, and I guess how it works a little bit differently than Detective Streilein's work with the Winnipeg Police Service?
Sure. So, at the MFSA, our work is focused on the various acts that we administer, like the Securities Act, the Mortgage Brokers Act, or the Real Estate Brokers Act. We have individuals that are registered with us that we end up investigating, and we also have individuals that should be registered with us that we also investigate. The bulk of our work on the investment side, and what I'm going to talk about today, relates to individuals that aren't registered, that are using an investment as a guise or a way to steal money from Manitoba.
So how is the MFSA different from, say, the RCMP or the Winnipeg Police Service?
So there definitely can be some overlap between the Winnipeg Police Service and the RCMP with the MFSA. The types of investigations that we conduct at the MFSA also have a criminal aspect to them in a lot of cases. Investment fraud is just one form of fraud, and is a violation of both the criminal code and the Manitoba Securities Act. So while police are looking at basically all crimes or all violations of the criminal code, we are looking at specific violations of the acts that we administer. We will often work together with our colleagues at the police and share intelligence and information on specific investigations.
I see. Now, Detective Streilein mentioned some statistics on fraud earlier. Can you elaborate on some of those numbers that you and your colleagues at the agency are seeing?
Yes, and it was really interesting to hear Detective Streilein mention that only 5% of victims actually report being a victim, and we see that as well in our work at the MFSA. Investment fraud is one of the most underreported crimes, so there are no real accurate numbers that you can put out in terms of the actual number of investment fraud that's out there. It's really hard to look at reported numbers and reported dollar losses with any sort of accuracy, because in reality, it's a very small percentage of what's actually out there. What I can say with the various securities commissions across the country is that the number of investment alerts that we've issued over the past year has more than doubled. And that's a good indication that the amount of investment fraud out there has also doubled, or it has significantly increased.
Now, COVID. I mean, COVID is obviously something that's been in the news every single day now for almost a year. Can you tell us a little bit more about investment fraud and how COVID has impacted rates of fraud?
Yeah, we've seen it definitely increase as a result of COVID. We've seen new scams pop up related to investment fraud, and especially here in Manitoba, which we're focused on. So fraudsters will take advantage of basically whatever's in the news and use that as a way to separate Manitobans from their money. For example, once the pandemic hit, there were all sorts of COVID-related scams using the pandemic, as part of their pitch, as a reason why you'd want to invest in a specific company related to a vaccine or a mask production company. So they're just using what is topical in the news to take advantage of people. And we're seeing a lot of that same thing happen with the surge of cryptocurrency, which is been in the news recently.
So, well, speaking of cryptocurrency, what types of fraud specifically do you see most often?
So in Manitoba, the most significant type of investment fraud that we see is offshore trading scams. So these are scams like Forex trading and crypto trading, and they've taken over from a previous known scam known as binary options. And those types of schemes are very persuasive right now. Last year, the Canadian Securities Administrators, which makes up all of the securities commissions across the country, issued more than, as I said, double the amount of investor alerts that they did the previous year. And the bulk of those alerts were Forex and crypto trading schemes. The concerns that we are seeing with the type of schemes are that they will often play up the Bitcoin price or the price of various cryptocurrencies that have been in the news and take advantage of people as to why they should invest in a particular company. In many cases, they will provide a fictitious Canadian address and a Canadian phone number so that you think you're being contacted by a Canadian when in fact it's somebody that's not in this country and they're just pretending to be in order to trick you. The other thing I wanted to mention is that when you're getting called by these individuals that are running these scams, it'll happen either via social media or via the internet or cold calls. They are running what's called boiler rooms. So there's individuals that are sitting in a room. They've got a script, and they the script tells them what to tell you, and has a list of the questions that you're probably going to ask them, and it's got answers. So they're really never flustered when you do ask a tough question of them, or you think you'll ask some questions. So you're always going to get a good answer, and so it's really important to know that what you're dealing with is likely a boiler room. And the other important thing I want to mention about that is when you do get pitched, and every Manitoban is going to get pitched by an investment scheme at some point, in the last year or the coming year. The important thing to do is to make some notes and report it to us. We can't do anything if we don't know about it. And the best way for us to protect Manitobans is to report it. I know that Mike has also made those comments. I was listening to that and couldn't agree more.
So hypothetically speaking, let's say I get an offer, maybe via email. I read it over. I'm a pretty smart guy. It seems like a good investment opportunity. What are the red flags I should look for?
So there's a number of different red flags. Offers that seem too good to be true. That's the old saying, and it's still true today as it was when it was someone first came up with that phrase. So if you get a call or an email out of the blue, or specifically after you visited a website, I recently in my work at the MFSA will identify suspicious websites, and I would use an alias to open an account under that alias. And generally what happens when I do that is within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, my phone will ring and I will start getting the sales pitch. So I've heard these pitches firsthand, and I know how sophisticated they are. So that's definitely a red flag. Offers from strangers or unsolicited offers, pressures to make quick decisions, low or no risk investments with high returns. If you're asked to, convert your Canadian dollars into cryptocurrency, in order to make the investment, it's just a way for them to hide or make it more difficult for us, or not only more difficult, almost impossible for us to trace the money. So once you do those kinds of things, in a lot of cases, the money's gone forever. It's unrecoverable. It's left the Canadian economy. It's left the Manitoba economy. And, we really want you to keep your hard-earned money in your own wallets and bank accounts. So that's why I think this message is so important.
So Jason, that said, like knowing what to look for in terms of red flags, I mean, how else can someone protect themselves from investment fraud? So
I think the first line of defense and the last line of defense is a website called arethéregistered.ca. It's run by the Canadian Securities Administrators. Anybody operating investment in Canada has to be licensed and registered. And so this is a website. Again, I'm going to repeat it. Arethéregistered.ca. It's a really important website. You can go on there, put in the company name and the individual name, and determine whether or not they are registered. And you should not be making any kind of investment in any company that isn't. That's really important. I'll say it one last time. Arethéregistered.ca.
Jason, we've also posted in the comments today the name of that website, arethéregistered.ca. Just look for that in the comments under MoneySmart Manitoba. Thank you.
Okay, and so there's a few other tips. So you should be skeptical of offers from unsolicited calls or emails. Don't be afraid to say no, hang up the phone or delete the email. Sometimes people are on those calls, and I've been on them myself, and they some guy has spent a lot of time and money and energy pitching them this investment, and just by nature, I think Manitobans and Canadians don't want to hurt anybody's feelings by hanging up or by saying no, and they eventually sometimes may turn over the credit cards. We're saying don't do that. If you want to hang up, that's fine. But alternatively, make some notes and report it so we can get to work and maybe put out an investor alert. You should definitely do your own research before you make an investment in anything. Even if you're dealing with somebody that's licensed and registered, get a second opinion from someone that's a trusted source, someone that's unbiased and not involved with the company. And know where to go to help. You can contact the MFSA, the Winnipeg Police Service, or the RCMP, or the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, as Mike has mentioned. So I think those are all really important tips.
That's terrific, Jason. So for those of you who've written in with your excellent questions today, we're going to get to our Q&A session very soon. I appreciate your patience and for tuning in with us this afternoon. We just have a few more quick questions. Jason, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about something else which is a major problem in Manitoba, which is senior fraud and senior financial abuse. I know that you see a lot of senior financial abuse in your work, which must be quite difficult.
Yes, it's most of our victims, I would say, are seniors.
Really?
Yeah. Seniors are retired. They've got money. They may be at home, and more often than not, pick up the phone on one of these unsolicited phone calls. And in fact, working at home over the last year has really opened my eyes to the amount of unsolicited phone calls that come in. I'm up to sometimes 3 or 4 a day if I'm at home, and that really shocked me, and it really hit home what I've heard from our seniors when they call our office about these calls.
Now, let's say somebody is watching here today. They suspect someone they know might be a victim of financial abuse. What should they look for, and what should they do?
Well, I think it's if you're a family member, and it's always good to talk to your grandparents or your parents about what's going on, and let them know that there are these types of schemes out there. Checking in with them on a regular basis, and reminding them not to turn over the credit card or entertain any of these types of things. To have sort of a policy set up that to call someone before you make any kind of investment, and to run it by another trusted family member. I think communication is really important about these things, and a lot of people are embarrassed and don't want to talk about money, and don't want to talk about especially once they've been victimized. But I want to get the message out there that that's something that I hear from victims, that they didn't want to report it because they feel embarrassed, they feel stupid, and I explain explain to them, how sophisticated these scams are. These are scams that are meant to be sophisticated, and meant to separate you from your money, and you're not necessarily going to notice it or know that you're being scammed until after, in a lot of cases.
That's excellent advice. Thank you very much. I think we're going to shift over to our Q&A shortly. We just want to remind viewers today, MoneySmartManitoba.com is a great source for free resources. It's very easy to understand. There's plenty of plain language information on financial basics and a lot of very good information for seniors. Sorry, that's MoneySmartManitoba.ca. And of course, we're here on Facebook, and you can find our website through Facebook as well. So we're going to move to some of the great questions we've had today. Again, if you have a question, please just type it into the chat and we'll try and get to as time permits. So our first question today is about romance scams. I guess this could be for Mike or Jason, but this is probably a little bit more in Mike's, Detective Streilein's wheelhouse. Do victims of romance scams ever get their money back?
To be honest, it's very seldom. I mean, even if we do launch an investigation, which we normally do, and we follow where the money was sent to, even if we do make an arrest, that person, we can't force that person to just open their bank account and give that money back to the victim. Usually it has to go through court, and then once a trial is set, that person can have so many excuses to why they don't have any more money. I mean, a judge can order, if they find them guilty, they can order for them to pay. But we rarely see it. And to be honest, a lot of the money will be sent from one account to another account to another account. So it'll go through many different bank accounts. And for the most part, eventually that money ends up in different countries where we're sending our police files to other jurisdictions to investigate it. And it's very tough when you're including many jurisdictions. So I'm going to say 99% of the time we don't see anyone get their money back.
If I could just maybe comment on that, just in terms of the investment side of things and why it's important to deal with a registered investment firm and a registered investor. You're more likely, if there is an issue, to have some sort of financial restitution. If you're dealing with a registrant, the registrants that we have working for us that are licensed with us, they carry insurance. There's all kinds of protections for investors, and it's way more likely to see an investor get their money back with a licensed registered firm if there is an issue that pops up, as opposed to an unregistered company or individual that's out there stealing money. And it really makes makes it difficult when the money's sent offshore or it's sent by cryptocurrency. So I think it's that message again about making sure that you're dealing with a registered investment advisor and investment firm is important.
Thanks very much to both of you. We have another question here, which is actually, I would say, very similar, although perhaps a bit more broad. I think some of it has been answered. Could you give us an indication as to the success rates of being able to help victims? Now, again, I think both of you sort of spoke to this a little bit in your previous comments, but if you'd like to elaborate a little bit more, I'm sure the individual here would appreciate it. Either Mike or Jason.
I can go just sort of give you my thoughts on that. We definitely help victims, I guess, initially, identify that they are a victim. In some cases, when they call us, they don't know if they're a victim or not. They don't know what's happened. They don't know how they've been scammed. And so we're able to sort of walk them through that, explain to them through our experience how these schemes work, what they need to do next if there is something to do next. whether that's, them to file a formal complaint with us, or to go to another agency, or to talk to their lawyer. The other thing that I think it's important about reporting it and is once they report it to us, if it is an investment fraud, we will often look to issue an investor alert and get the word out to Manitobans about the particular scheme. And that may not have a direct help to the individual that's reporting the scam, but it's going to give you I think some satisfaction in knowing that you've helped others potentially avoid the scheme.
Mike, would you like to elaborate on that a little bit, or should we move to the next question?
No, I can offer a little piece. So
Thank you.
even if you have fallen victim to a romance scam, although getting your money back is very unlikely, you reporting it and us gathering that information and figuring out where that money was sent off to, we can then, even if they're outside of Manitoba, we send it to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, which is made up of the RCMP. They can then send it to any jurisdiction in Canada. They have intelligence based gathering programs where they can link up all these accounts. And usually you're not the only victim through that way, through going through the Canadian Fraud Center. We usually identify other victims who this fraudster is preying on, and we can and just follow up more. And in some cases, the money that you had sent off is being received by what's called a mule. So someone who's also fallen victim to a scam, they may be thinking they're employed through legitimate means, when in fact the fraudster is just getting them to receive money, keep a portion, and then send that money to somebody else. So the more we can follow it, the better the success we can have. So it's really key to report this, and that's the biggest thing, is always report it. Don't be ashamed. It happens more common than you would think, and it happens to all ages, 20-year-olds to 80, 90-year-olds.
That's a good point, Mike. Thank you. Absolutely. Report it, because it does make a difference. We have so many good questions here we'd like to get to, so I'll kind of speed through a couple of these. The next question, very good. What should a victim do if they are in the middle of a fraudulent call, or what they believe to be a fraudulent call?
So I mean, there's two things you can do. One, I mean, there's no harm in just hanging up. I would, prefer that you don't provide any personal information, but you maybe just hang on the call and get some details about who's calling you, the phone number that you're being contacted from, where you ask questions about where the company is located, if they've got a website, and jot those details down, and then report it to us or to the Winnipeg Police Service, the RCMP. So I think those are, that's my advice for someone that's people that are on this Facebook live stream, they may get that call this afternoon. So we'd like to get as many of these things reported to us as possible.
Yeah, and I would just say, report it. And if you're in the middle of a call, send it off, contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center and send those details like Jason said that you get. Send that off to them, and they'll harvest it in their intelligence-based network, link it all together, and maybe they can find out who's perpetrating these phone calls.
That's excellent advice. We have another very similar question, perhaps what I would say is the opposite side of the coin. A viewer here says, Canada Revenue Agency does sometimes make calls. So how can someone identify a real call versus a scam call? When is it okay to give out information to someone on the phone?
They'll call you and they'll ask you, they usually will have, the real CRA should usually have that information. They shouldn't have to ask you to provide a lot of information. I still don't suggest providing personal information on the phone, especially your SIN number. Verify it, ask for their employee number, even hang up and say, I'm going to call you back, and actually call the CRA's number that you can find in a phone book or online, call them back through that means, and that's another way you can protect yourself, because you're actually going to call back a legitimate phone number, and you say, listen, I received a phone call from, let's say, Jeff, employee number 3235, and just say, does this person exist? And they can tell you right away, yes or no. I mean, personally, I wouldn't give out any personal information. I would then make my, like I said before, they can use call spoofing technology. I would get their information, hang up, then contact the CRA myself through a phone number I know is legitimate.
That's good.
Good
That's
advice.
great advice. Thank you very much. We have a couple more questions here. Again, this sort of gets back to the importance of reporting. This question is, because victims don't see their money back, is that the reason why reporting fraud is so low?
In my opinion, I think that the majority of it is an embarrassment factor. They don't, they don't want to be, they're embarrassed about falling for something, and they don't want to report it. Lots of times, they don't know whether or not they can get their money back because they haven't looked into it, or they haven't contacted us. I would really echo that to people that, it's important to report it, so we know about it, so we can warn Manitobans, and that these are very sophisticated schemes that are targeting Manitobans, and people shouldn't feel embarrassed about falling victim.
Mike?
Just to add to that, I mean, we sometimes launch investigations on an individual, and we find out that, hey, this individual has been receiving money for years and years. If we run that information on police networks and police computer systems, we can then sometimes find a report made in 2017 where this victim did report it. Sometimes we can make an arrest off that. And that's how we link these crimes. The key is to reporting it. Even if the initial outlook may be grim that you might not get your money back, you never know. And that's the thing. You never know, because these fraudsters, they do it once, they do it again. They're trained on this. They've done it for years. They work in groups, and we investigate the groups. We find the groups, and we go back and we dig through bank records. Bank records are kept for 7 years, so we can go that far back and we can make links. So that's why I say it's always important to report it. And again, it's the embarrassment factor, but you know what? You got to realize that if it happened to you, it could happen to someone else. Prevent the next person from being scammed, and open the discussion. You have to have these discussions with family members, friends. They can help you get through this. They can help you get past the embarrassment. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. These guys are not guys. These individuals, guys or girls, are trained to do this. This is like their education in fraud. They are very good at what they do, and they can trick anybody in the right situation. And they prey on.
Well said. I guess we have time for one more question. The question is, have either of you, Detective Streilein or Mr. Roy, have either of you been pitched by a fraud or a fraudster?
I can maybe go first on that, and I'm, in my job, I'm pitched all the time. But in one particular occasion, in 2016, I was at work. Finished the day, went home, and ended up getting a phone call out of the blue, asking me if I wanted to sort of be rich and to press 1. I did, and spent a bunch of time on the phone with an individual that was pitching me on a specific type of scam called binary options. And it just so happens that I was probably the only guy in the province that was investigating binary options, and it turned out that particular scheme ended up becoming the biggest investment fraud on the planet for a couple of years. But we became aware of it early on because it became so common that even out of the 1 million people that live in the province, the one guy that was investigating it got pitched, and I'm pitched on a regular basis, but a lot of cases that's intentionally. I will get myself on various lists in order to get pitched, so I know what's going on out there. And just one other quick story. A couple of years ago, I decided to stop and pay for parking. I was going to the gym, and my $2 parking charge wouldn't go through. I checked my bank account and noticed that my credit card had been hacked, and there was $15,000 of unauthorized charges on it. So where Detective Streilein has mentioned, it's good to check your credit card balance on a monthly basis. I think that's good advice.
I too have been compromised my credit card as well, and I check mine every couple of days, and I found it, and sure enough, it's a huge headache. But you know what? It happens to everybody. As for being pitched, I mean, I like Jason. I enjoy pressing 1 when I get the CRA phone calls. I like talking to the person on the other line, more so just to see what they're pitching, what the latest pitch is, and I go along with it, but I never give out any personal information. It's more of an intelligence-based gathering technique that I use. And sometimes I to be honest, I have like one of those air horns. I use sometimes blow that off in the phone on their other end. But yeah, it's a little reminder for them they're not messing with the wrong person. But yeah, I've fallen victim to even clicking into links for emails thinking it's from a cell phone provider, and then I'm like, oh, what did I just do? And then the antivirus things pop up, and I'm like, wow, like that's how easy it happens to anybody it happens to.
So we took a quick poll at the beginning of our broadcast. Have you, a viewer, ever been the victim of fraud? And we received about 15 responses. Interestingly enough, 20% of those took the poll said that yes, unfortunately, they had been the victim of a fraud, but about 80% said no. Sort of telling that even just in the number of people watching this broadcast today, we have fraud victims and possibly others who perhaps were maybe uncomfortable about reporting that today. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of MoneySmart Manitoba and the MFSA, a big thank you to Detective Mike Streilein and the Winnipeg Police Service for making time to explain mass market frauds and other frauds to our viewers today. Thank you to Jason Roy for speaking on investment fraud and senior fraud. This has been Protect Your Family from Fraud, a special March Fraud Prevention Month presentation by MoneySmart Manitoba. That's moneysmartmanitoba.ca, where you can go to grow your financial knowledge. Gentlemen, any last sort of comments or information you'd like to quickly provide to our viewers before we sign off for today?
I think just report it and to check to make sure that the company you're dealing with is legitimate. And if it's an investment, you can go to the areteyregistered.ca website. Thanks for having me.
I would say report it. You can report it with the Winnipeg Police Service in person at a station duty. If you're not comfortable with even leaving your house, you can report it online. We have an e-report system. Yeah, do whatever you can. And if there's something you're in the middle of something and you need immediate assistance, obviously call our non-emergency number or 911 if it is an emergency. So.
Thank you so much. And we have a very kind comment here. It says, thanks to all of you who make this possible and for helping us stay more aware of how to protect ourselves from fraud. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks again, gentlemen. This has been Protect Your Family from Fraud, presentation of MoneySmart Manitoba. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.